A pleasant afternoon, our dearest panelists in Bulacan State University College of Business Administration, Dr. Eugene Matuk, Ms. Ruth Silmoy, and Dr. Mikey Reyes. Also, to our subject advisor, Mrs. Maria Lilibet Lee. I, Hannah Marie Francisco, together with the other member of the Group 6, we are going to present our research paper entitled Work from Home, an Assessment of an Employee's Coping Mechanism in the Face of a Pandemic. Given a world that pandemic happened, many were affected. One of these was the business sector. The mandated worldwide lockdown that aims to lessen or stop the spreading of a virus leads to a quick transmission of a daily life routine. A normal day-to-day travel and doing tasks inside the company to a work-from-home setup was called the new normal. Many companies have considered making a full transition to operating remotely. However, the transition is not easy. A lot of people experience difficulties in adapting to today's reality. Some are still in the process of dealing. Some employees found out that they could work effectively, but some are not. Mertens 2020. As we conducted this study, we aim to assess the situation and struggle of the work from home employees, how they adapt the new setup, and lastly, to give way and coping up with this situation. The general problem of this study is how may coping mechanism of an employee's emergent changes in work practices in this time of a pandemic be assessed. Specifically, it seeks answer to the following questions.
Significance of the study. The findings of the result of this study would be a great help and primarily benefited the employee, employers, organization, researchers, and future researchers, the employees. As employees who are subject to different stress, this study will determine the kind of stress you are experiencing and provide a coping mechanism. The employers. Employers have the duty of care for all their workers. Hence, they must be supportive and empathetic. This paper attempts to provide the employer knowledge on what seem to be the common reason for the stress their employees are experiencing from work from home settings. The organization. This study will help the organization on how to promote health and well-being. The researchers. This paper will broaden the people's knowledge and awareness of how serious inner battle were. In addition, this research will also shed light on those individuals who cannot seem to find the right coping mechanism designed to help them. The future researchers. This paper can be used as a basis for the study. Future researchers can choose a different approach and respondent to continue accessing different stressors and type of coping mechanism.
The research design and the method that we use in this study were quantitative research, for as it gives a broad description and useful information as to which variables can be tested quantitatively. The respondents of the study were only private company office employee shifted to work from home setup living in the city of Malolos, Bulacan. As for the research instrument, an online survey was used for this study for the sake of the safety from both parties between the researcher and the respondent, especially now that our country is facing the pandemic, for as online survey are easy to design and simple to deploy. To get the appropriate data needed, the researcher made a questionnaire with 4 parts. This questionnaire was made by researchers and tested reliability with Cronbach points of 0.927 and has an excellent consistency. For the data collection, researcher first formulate a validated self-made questionnaire to acquire data, followed by conducting a free-flow survey among employees who experienced the work-from-home setting in the time of pandemic. The study chooses multi-stage and purposive sampling to get the data needed because there are still no actual counts of employees shifted off the setup.
I will discuss the primary research findings for this study. Table 2 presents the frequency and percentage distribution of the respondents' age. Result shows that 48% of the respondent age less than 25 years old. Another 48% answered they were 25 to 30 years old. The remaining 4% of the respondent age more than 35 years old. In terms of gender, Table 3 presented the result. 64% of the respondents were female and the other 36% were male. For the civil status of the respondent, Table 4 showed the results. 22 out of 25 respondents were single and the other 3 were married. Table 5 presents the respondents' average monthly income. It was shown that 44% of the respondents received below 20,000 as their average monthly income. 32% of the respondents received 21,000 up to 30,000. On the other hand, 12% of the respondents received 31,000 up to 40,000 as their average monthly income, and another 12% received higher than 40,000. In terms of the nature of work, Table 6 summarized the result. 32% of the respondents were under the category of clerical. The other 28% were managerial. On the other hand, 20% of the respondents falls under the category of supervisorial, and another 20% falls under the Table 7 presents the frequency, percentage, and ranking of the organizational factors taken into considerations when working from home. First thing that the respondent consider is whether the organization strike a balance between work and their personal lives. It got 21.79%. Second thing they consider is whether their work provides the thing needed to shift into work from home. At the same rank, employees often keep in touch with their coworkers and supervisors when working from home. Also in the same rank, employees consider whether the organization provide informations to make them feel prepared. Last on rank, in a percentage of 16.67%, respondents consider whether the organization is willing to help them if they ask. Table 8 presents the environmental factors. Ranked first in a percentage of 28.99%, respondents said that they feel safe for their family when working from home. Second, they consider whether they have the proper setup of places where they can do work at home. It got 21.74%. At third place, 17.39% of the respondents said that they like the atmosphere more in their house than at workplace. At 15.94%, respondents said that they do their job without the interruptions of other people. Also in the same rank and percentage, respondents said that working from home gave them peace and calmness. Table 9 summarized the result of individual factors. Majority of the respondents prioritize their safety when they select work from home. It got 37%. Followed by 20% of the respondents, they said that they enjoy staying at home while working. Third in rank, in a percentage of 17%, employees admire the fact that they always achieve what they are capable of. On the other hand, 14% of the respondents said that they really waste time while at work. Last on rank, in a percentage of 12%, respondents consider what is best for their company.
The table 10% the mean and verbal interpretation in terms of time management. Employees who prepare a to-do list to schedule their time of work from home setup has a mean of 3.36 and a verbal interpretation of moderately. Employees who do their task in order of priority have a highest mean of 3.96 and a verbal interpretation of very. Employees who avoid multitasking have a mean of 2.36 and a verbal interpretation of slightly. Employees who are able to meet their deadlines have a mean of 3.92 and a verbal interpretation of very. Employees who strictly follow their work and are scheduled who have a mean of 3.76 and a verbal interpretation of very, with an overall mean of 3.47 and a moderate verbal interpretation. Table 11 presented the result in terms of effective communication. First, employees who can easily communicate with their coworkers have a highest mean of 4.0 and a verbal interpretation of very. Employees who can always handle the distraction during the day have a mean of 3.40 and a verbal interpretation of moderately. Employees who can handle being shocked by any news that is announced at an all-hands meeting has a mean of 3.72 and a verbal interpretation of very. Fellow employees who appear to keep me informed have a mean of 3.83 and a verbal interpretation of very. During this work-from-home setup, clients rarely misinterprets them. Has a mean of 3.28 and a verbal interpretation, all mean of 3.65 and a verbal interpretation of very. In Table 12, it shows that in terms of relaxing activities, employees who take regular breaks and stretch their body have a highest mean of 3.80 and a verbal interpretation of very. Employees who would catch some air have a mean of 3.40 and a verbal interpretation of moderately. Employees who have watched movies after work have a mean of 3.64 and a verbal interpretation of very. Employees who spend their time with their family during their day off have a mean of 2.96 and a moderate verbal interpretation. Employees who done workouts before their work to help them to be more productive have a mean of 2.84 and moderate verbal interpretation, with an overall mean of 3.33 with a moderate verbal interpretation. The table 13 shows the result of the Connect with family and have a grand mean of 3.59 with the overall verbal interpretation of very. The employees set to work from home responded on the first variable focusing on the positive side rather than the negative side, had a mean of 3.76 and a verbal interpretation of very. The second one is keeping in touch with their family and friends, got a mean of 3.72 and interpreted as very. Talking to family whenever they feel burnout, obtain a 3.76 mean with a very verbal interpretation. The fourth is avoiding sharing fake news with a much higher mean of 4.36 with an overall verbal interpretation of very. The last one is considering the family and friend as stress relievers and got the second highest mean of 4.0 and a verbal interpretation of very. The table 14 indicated that the majority of the respondents have always experienced internet interruptions while working at home as it topped the technological constraints. The second place is, since weak internet connection caused their numerous interruptions, the employees tend to find alternatives and it end up using a prepaid load so they able to continue their works. The third rank is employees set to work from home experience delays because of different technological constraints. In the fourth place is that employees do not have high quality computers at home, just like what are they using at their offices. Lastly, the table showed that the respondents are not having much trouble using the technology. Hence, in table 15, it shows the following informations. 48% of the respondents experience delay on their queries due to technical interruptions, and it somehow affects their performance at work. The second thing that limits the productivity of the employee was when they get easily distracted by their family members whenever they are about to present before and during working hours. 40% of the total respondents stated that they experienced this. Ranking in third on productivity constraints was employee working in a shared room. The noise either from their roommates, family, or partners. On the other hand, 8 out of 25 respondents answered that they were often emotionally drained and it prevents them from focusing on work. It got 8% and landed on the fourth spot, also of the same value as the latter one. Employees experience stress at home and it affects their productivity at work. In table 16, it shows the financial constraints. 60% of the total respondent said that they received the right amount of the salary despite shifting to work from home setup. 56% of the respondent expressed that working from home is a great thing because they save more money. In addition, 12 out of the total respondents answered that they have handled their own expenses, cash flow, and budget. 44% of the employees are responded that they were being paid fairly upon working from home. And lastly, no respondent have experienced struggling in paying off their debts, such as personal loans, credit cards, and bills upon shifting.
Summary of findings. The findings of the study were summarized according to the statement of the problems. Question number 1. What is the demographic profile of the employees? According to the data, the majority of employees in the city of Malolos are young adults who have transitioned from working from home settings. Also showed that the majority of the respondents were single and more capable of performing their job well using technology. The result also reveals that the average monthly income is usually received by employees. Based on the data gathered, the respondents' natures of work is clerical field. Number 2. What factors are taken into consideration by the employees when working at home? The result shows that, in the organizational factors, most of the respondents are being encouraged by their organization to balance between work and their personal lives, followed by providing the things they need in working from home settings. By considering environmental factors, the findings revealed that most of the respondents felt safe when they working at home, followed by those employees who had a proper setup. In terms of individual factors, the majority of the respondents prioritize their safety in this time of pandemic, and employees who tend to enjoy staying at home while working. Number 3. How may the coping mechanisms of working from home employees be assessed? The findings reveal that the employee coping mechanisms are measured in terms of time management, with respondents creating a to-do list to schedule their work from home time setting and orderly prioritizing their tasks. Employees revealed that they can easily communicate with their co-workers in terms of effective communication. Relaxing activities as respondents' coping mechanisms are taking regular breaks and stretching to keep blood flowing and prevent back injuries. Focusing on the positive rather than negative and maintaining contact with family and friends reveals a coping mechanism in terms of connecting with family and social media. The data also reveals that in this time of pandemic, employees tend to rely so much on this different coping mechanism. Last, what are the constraints that employees are facing in a work-from-home setting? The findings shed light on the technical constraint that employee experiencing internet interruptions. The result shows that majority of the respondents experience query delays due to technical constraints, which hampered their performance at work. Employees who are easily distracted by family members when they are about to present themselves before and during working hours face productivity constraints. Also, it reveals that working from home has a lot of distractions and will affect the performance of the employee. In terms of financial constraints, the outcome reveals that the employees still receive the right amount of salary despite shifting of work from home setting, following the employees who have prior experience of earning more savings.
This study therefore concluded that employees from Malolos Bulacan who shifted to work from home setup chose this work arrangement for several factors. This study confirmed that communication is a vital factor that employees considered in choosing a work from home arrangement, proven in the response of the participants that the main factors are the organizational factors that encourage them to strike a balance between work and their personal lives. Employers make sure that they don't leave their employees hanging without their guidance. Significantly shows that the respondents are clearly being supported by these organizations, remarkably. And the employees didn't forget to communicate with their co-workers shows that they are closely together during this pandemic. Second, the issue of safety and convenience is a major consideration for the respondents. Respondents consider the safety of their family in choosing such a setup. This way, they just stay at home and avoid infection with the virus. It's also a precaution for themselves. In the same way, respondents save more. They no longer have to spend the fare and buy foods outside because they are just at home.
Since they only rely on their own resources, it is not as good and stable as if they were working on-site. Large percentage of respondents experience internet interruption while working. The data also shows that there are delays on their careers due to technical interruptions that somehow affects their performance. These factors affects the quality and efficiency of their work and the company's performance in meeting the client's needs. Such incidents are unavoidable and out of control, but it has a huge impact on their overall work.
Report presents the following recommendation. It is based on research findings about the condition of employees and the challenging setup called work from home. Employees should know the boundaries between work and personal lives and must be always ready to gauge circumstances and be wise in making priorities. The best choice for everybody during this pandemic that there is no assurance of safeness. Advise employees to take concern about physical fitness. Employees should be directed to envisage the significance of time. Perform every task with a quality output according to opportunity to accomplish.
Encourage employees to be more specific and stay focused in delivering information to clients, as it is important that employees are always ready to enter work through remote working strategies. Take relaxing activities that should become one of the priorities. It helps them to breathe and release themselves from stressful workloads. Employees must keep themselves with people who will surely give them strength, love, and hope. Get high quality, fast, and stable connections to be used in all transactions at work. Both employees and employers should have a portion shouldering internet expenses. Seminars about technological platforms should be conducted by the company. Exercising fair treatment must be continued by the company, paying the right amount in return to the service rendered by its employee.